How are you doing? Adrian Tepes here, and this is another episode of Whatever Happened to the Game. So today I'm talking about my most enjoyed and my most disappointing video game sequels. I realized at a point that this game episode is too much for one episode. I need to talk about more or less, to really go over the various disappointments. I guess that's how reviewing works, isn't it? You gotta go and find out. Wait, I've got. There's so much more I can explore in terms of why I dislike this or why I enjoy it so much. So, for the sake of exploration, there is plenty more to talk about, and there'll be more episodes of this. In the meantime, I have a link in the comments, or you can come on the stream as a guest. Don't worry, I'm pretty generous with those who join. Oh, got here right on time. Right on the minute, Albeleo. That's good.
Sorry, was trying to rush.
It happens sometimes. It happens. So I'm talking today about the video game sequels that I enjoyed and was most disappointed by. You're playing Word of Ecclesia tomorrow, or?
Correct. That I will be streaming that. Yes.
Okay, you're almost done, right?
I just found the last villager, so I don't know what else has to be done. So I don't know if it'll be this last. I don't know if this last stream for the year will complete the whole thing or not.
You're getting close, very close. That's all I've got
Okay.
to say without spoiling too much. Because today I'm going to be playing Curse of Darkness. If you catch it, I'll be playing Lord of the Rings, the Game Boy Advance version. But I will be going back. I think my disc for Two Towers has bitten the dust, unfortunately. So I'm going to play the Game Boy Advance version, but it's still not the same thing.
Gotcha.
But I will be playing Curse of Darkness today for the Two Towers. So there's two towers, and they're huge dungeons. So I'm going to be spending my time on a live stream going through those two towers. Yeah.
Nice.
And this is last week's episode, Whatever Happened to Halo 3. But I decided to go off Halo again before the last Halo episode happens next week. But now, the one that I really enjoyed as a sequel, and it is a sequel, is Metal Gear Solid. So Metal Gear was way back from the late 80s, and where they started actually doing stealth action games. Games where if you aren't sneaky and you set up an alarm, you'll be overwhelmed by all the guards. But Metal Gear Solid was the first Metal Gear that I would say had a wide audience. It reached in terms of selling over 7 million units for the first Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid anyways.
Okay.
To this game, as we all know, Sony PlayStation was where that really started for having multiple discs per game. But otherwise, yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just saying back in a time when we couldn't fit everything on one disc.
Oh yeah, I've been reading because I didn't get all of these games that are multi-disc, but obviously Final Fantasy games are multiple discs for 7 and 8. Resident Evil 2 was more than one disc, but somehow they fit it on one Nintendo 64 cartridge. Somehow. With the limit on a Nintendo 64 cartridge being 64 megabytes.
Yeah, they pulled off something incredible with that one.
I believe most of it for Resident Evil 2 anyways was that they just didn't show the video cutscenes. They kept it within the mechanics of the game.
Yeah, basically. Basically, they dropped the resolution down something horrible because you can barely see anything in the game. and then I think they took out all of the
Right.
cinematics and just made like flat images.
I mean, if you want a remake for Nintendo for Resident Evil 2, use the GameCube version, not the N64.
Right.
The GameCube version is one disc, but at least keeps, it keeps about the same quality as the PlayStation version did. Because the GameCube discs, if I remember correctly, they could go up to a couple of gigabytes instead of the PS1 having a limit of 650 megabytes on their CDs. But otherwise, yeah, Metal Gear Solid multi-disc game. And I'm going to go into the videos after I talk about my experience with it. I first played Splinter Cell, and Splinter Cell's a bit different. Splinter Cell franchise is pretty much dead at this point, but in the 2000s, it was all the hype with
Hmm.
they called it realistic, but I don't want to say realistic so much as it's something that where you feel like it could happen. I mean, it's not giant battle mechs in Splinter Cell so much as it is computer hacking. And as Sam Fisher is a specialist in tracing back hackers to the source on an international level because he's with the NSA or National Security Agency. So Splinter Cell is another good case of stealth action games, but I'd say they're a little less outlandish and more darker in their tone overall than Metal Gear Solid is.
Hmm.
So I literally found Metal Gear Solid because I was looking for games from the PS1 to use on the PS2 because of backwards compatibility. So that's how I got it because it's one of the most popular games for the PS1, combined with the fact that they are continuing the series on PS2 and PS3. Ugh.
And this is the first. I know this is the first one on the PS1, but this is the one that started the meme format, basically, right? Where somebody just radios in to Snake.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It has the codec. I mean, you have old Metal Gear, and I'm going to show a video of the old Metal Gear as well, because the old Metal Gear just has walls of text. So I'm going to get a screen for that right now.
Hmm.
So with the old Metal Gear, and the better version is thankfully, um, it's in the remastered collection now. You can get on Steam for Metal Gear, anyways. So, but yeah, it's a little. So this is the good MSX version, Nintendo MSX version of Metal Gear Solid. And I'll get it on the thing here. Present, share screen. Yes. Uh, so this is old 16-bit graphics, just top down.
Yeah, yeah. Back on the NES, I remember.
Yeah, the NES of these games is the worst version because you just have it. You don't have known as Metal Gear. You just have a computer ridiculous.
Hmm.
But the top down, as we're going to show, and I go into Metal Gear Solid, that one is just part of it. It's genuinely 3D gameplay, and it makes no waste of the various items you get in the game. So I'm going to go over to that one. Well, thank you, Source. It's nice you play it as you used to. I could not, for the life of me, recreate the skill I had when I was a novice at playing video games.
Hmm.
So this is where you start out with the obviously the better graphics that you can now do with PlayStation compared to the old, because now you got a 500 megabyte disc. I'm gonna skip ahead at this point, but it's a good demonstration of what you get, get in this one. So,
I do like how cinematic everything is being.
right. Definitely. I mean, it's one of the things I have to say that's good about this one. Um, they remade this game for GameCube with Twin Snakes, and I have my disagreements, but they didn't waste any of the hardware improvements that they've had with the Sony PlayStation at all.
Sniper Wolf, Decoy Octopus. These are these are all obviously based off of Mega Man X.
Oh yeah, more or less.
At
You
least the
got
naming scheme is.
Yeah, it is. Um, and the names are a little bit more weird when you go into the Japanese versions of them. So yeah, this is where you start. So you have that same overhead view, but it changes a little bit. And the big thing that I liked about this one compared to the previous is that you can have an advantage by looking farther ahead using your binoculars or thermal vision.
Hmm.
But just like any Metal Gear game, you start with no weapons at all. Kind of like Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, kind of funny how you're basically just playing it like like the top down view at like this with the very um
Yeah,
I'm
the
trying to think of the
world
word
is oh
symmetrical design. It makes it
yeah,
feel like it's sort of like
it's
Pac-Man 3D.
right. It's an homage to the original Metal Gear, but it gets so much better because you actually have 3D. Like you have little rooms that are vertically multiple floors on top of each other.
Mm.
And this game gets more advanced than the older Metal Gear because you literally have mapped out air vent networks that you can use to navigate the facilities with without being seen. I want to see how this player decides to approach get inside because I usually take the top, go from the top floor down, because it gives me a good view of the people below when I'm sneaking. Yeah, there are some longer cutscenes in this game, but the thing about this game is that you should remember things that are spoken by characters in these cutscenes. They're not just for watching. You got to remember, okay, this character said this, Well, that fact is important to make the game easier later on. It's like, don't go to this floor. There's the floor is going to blow up. There's likely a trap and so forth.
Hmm.
As you can see in this version, they've just it's an upgrade from the earlier Metal Gear because now they have animated faces to talk.
Yeah.
I just want to see how he gets inside. Okay. Novice skill my ass. I I would, at least from my experience, because I didn't know how to throw a grenade on the run when I first played it.
I was gonna
And
say, how did he get rid of the camera there? Did he just pop it with a
so
uh
these are chaff grenades. They contain both metal dust and EMP in the grenade. So the metal dust
mm,
messes around with any radar scans because every little speck of that metal dust will reflect the radar, so it makes it haywire. And the EMP disables electronics nearby. Oh, he took the top.
oh, is this uh Shadow Moses Island? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's the first. That's Metal Gear Solid, and they reference it again in Metal Gear Solid 4.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm learning.
Yeah, so this person also didn't go through the video briefing at the beginning of the game, which really
Hmm.
helps to know what's going on. And basically, so this is very much a follow-up to Metal Gear 2. In Metal Gear 2, you supposedly killed the boss of the terrorists, and some of the survivors want his dead body back for the DNA.
Should just call them McDonald's Millers.
Oh, yeah. I've got a McDonald in my extended family. It's his middle name, though. So this is the vent, and obviously this game has it mapped vertically and horizontally how these vents go snake around inside the building.
Hmm.
So this person who's playing it really doesn't look like a novice to me because he's going in from above, which in this game it's helpful because it lets you have more visuals to the guys below you from a height advantage. And of course, I'm a little annoyed by the radio calls when I go, when I know that I'm getting out of the vent. Come on.
Hmm. Did they pop up all the time?
Yeah, but you actually have to go into, you have to press the select button to actually answer the call. You don't have to answer it at all,
Oh, okay.
but they're usually helpful in warning you about something.
Okay. So it's sort of like Navi from Ocarina.
Yeah, sort of. Don't get seen by the cameras. Thermal goggles, very helpful in this game. It's very helpful for the dark and for seeing electronic devices or the alarm motion sensor lasers. So your little radar thing shows the cones because that's where your enemies are looking, and
Mm.
that's their vision. So just trying to not be in their vision and trying to not be too loud so they don't spot you. But I'm gonna watch here and see. Oh, he's trying to do
Oh,
a chokehold.
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's part of the 3D aspect is you can crawl under certain objects, like crawl under a tank, crawl under a truck, and so on. So now he's got to get to the elevator and make sure the elevator. Oh, because if you're waiting for the elevator, they can spot you then.
Huh. I do like that little element. It seems like a very ambitious game because I keep saying everything is everything is in camera, like
Right.
crawling around in the vents. And because it doesn't break away from anything, it definitely,
It versus, right?
yeah, it's trying to keep you in the game. I mean, the fluorescent lights there are translucent, and the pipes on the ceilings, like it's really trying to get you to feel like you're still in this facility, you know?
Definitely. And the immersion part is it's kind of mixed. I mean, I'll show you the fourth wall break I forgot to mention when we were talking about Castlevania, but here it is. The infamous "You like Castlevania, don't you?"
Oh, that's a thing?
Yeah, so it happened for me because I was more or less I was more or less had a it depends what is on your memory card for your PlayStation. So because I
Mhm.
was playing Symphony of the Night, I had a save game file on my memory card. So what happens is Metal Gear Solid as a game reads your memory card and it sees what games you have saved game files for. It even becomes different when you're playing the GameCube remake because he does a similar fourth wall break, but again, it's only for the GameCube games you have saved.
Oh, interesting. It's kinda cool.
Yeah. Oh,
In no way, shape, or form does he question whether or not he's talking to a spy or wondering why he's
yeah.
talking out loud about anything. Just shut up. Like, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the few moments I think the GameCube remake did well, is the guy actually opens the door, checks in there, and Snake just hides in the vent to not get caught. Solid Snake being the guy in the blue outfit.
Mhm.
Oh, I'll get ahead to the first kind of boss. So this is the first time they have an actual boss battle, and it's Ocelot. He's a recurring boss in the whole series.
Oh, that isn't the most, like, anime thing ever with all the with all the lines that are
Tripwires.
the strings that are holding them up.
Yeah, tripwires.
Hey, Alexander, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Alex, how are you? Yeah, Alex, I mean, it depends. That's the time that we can kind of do it at 11 in the morning. But I will, Alex, we'll have a re-released series of episodes that will be premiered at an evening time, which some people who can't make this one will be able to make.
The Cult Single Action Club.
Yeah.
I love that he's like clearly based off of Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, I did enjoy that part. And Snake is obviously inspired heavily by Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this one's hard because you have to try and um, hit this guy with your gun, and he goes towards off the screen, and he runs too. And you can't shoot Kenneth Baker with your shots either. So no, this is not novice skill either.
I love to reload during a battle. Oh wow, I like how there's a little laser that pops up and shows that you're targeting the fat guy.
Yeah. So you got the laser in the truck before you entered the hangar. That's the laser sight for the SOCOM pistol,
Mm-hmm. Oh
which
good
I
lord, this
I
fight is
believe that
annoying.
I believe this pistol is meant to be based off a Beretta with an extended magazine, considering you have what 25 or an MP5, 25 rounds in a magazine. That's a lot.
Okay. Oh, he could have just unloaded on him and took it out.
Yeah, but this is before you get the extra life capacity in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did notice his life is really small compared to the bosses.
Yeah, so after each boss, you essentially get an upgrade in your life, your capacity. I'll move on to another part of this because it's going to be time for me to not forget
What?
from a ninja. Come on, that's very anime-esque too.
What just happened?
So
Oh, he's cloaked. Oh.
the ninja, yeah, the ninja cut his arm off with the sword.
That's interesting. I did like the cloak effect. That was pretty nice for a
It
PS1
is.
game.
You gotta remember, it's a spy game. There's tons of lies, always. So I'm gonna pause this quickly. So the 1.4.15, if you got the original PlayStation version of this game, you had to actually look inside your CD case because this is both a fourth wall break and it was an anti-piracy measure. So you had to actually look in your case to see what your CD serial number was to get the radio frequency to call the lady known as Meryl.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Were people really pirating PS1 games back in the day? Like it doesn't.
I mean, the CD burning technology existed at that
Yeah,
point,
yeah, I do forget about that. Nero and whatnot.
but
Yeah, I guess so.
but yeah. So you had to get the actual case and read the number inside your actual CD to know the number in game to call Meryl. I thought that was a little bit annoying. Um, Thankfully, there's a PDF manual that you read for that in the Steam version of this game, but it was it was a little weird in the original
Hmm.
game.
I actually really like those kinds of details where they include and make use of the manual and the case and whatnot.
Yeah, it's similar to these conversations. Like Meryl's telling you things you need to know, like that make the game easier if you know the details that these characters tell you.
Hmm. Hey, Chaos, how you doing?
Chaos, how are you doing, brother?
Oh, the fat dude died of a heart attack. Are we kidding?
You think it's a heart attack?
That's hilarious. Couldn't possibly be that he was strung up like a saw, like it was a saw puzzle. Couldn't, he didn't get stabbed by the new cloaking ninja. No, his heart just couldn't take it.
Well, you think it's a heart attack. You get more clues later. That's part of the immersion in this game, is that
Yeah,
there's a mystery to it.
yeah. It's just funny that that's what they
Yeah,
say is what happened.
yeah, it is. He's gonna test oh no, he's gonna get the box. So you've probably seen this in Super Smash Brothers where Snake puts a box over himself. That's what he's
Yeah.
gonna get. That's what he's gonna go get right now when he gets around the camera.
Hmm.
I did I ever tell you? I think I told you in an earlier episode that they actually like tricked security systems with the Marine Corps training exercise by hiding underneath cardboard boxes in real life.
You're kidding.
No, I mean the basic point is that like AI is stupid as a security system without a human controlling it.
Hmm.
So they the Marines were they were trying to test the limits of the security system. So they hid underneath cardboard boxes, and if a person was controlling the security system and not an AI, they would recognize, okay, the box is moving, it's actually a person. But by
It couldn't.
itself, the AI didn't. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
So basically, they played Metal Gear Solid in real
They
life with
played Metal
cardboard
Gear and
boxes.
thought, why not? Let's do it, and they won. It's insane.
Okay, Chaos. I'd be interested in checking out your live stream. Just post when you're going to do it. All right, like Chaos, are you going to play which one? Like one, two, or three?
Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Towers.
That's the remake. E- does your GameCube copy still works? Are you kidding me? Looks bad, but it still plays? What? What? So I just want to skip this to show the thermal goggles real quick. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thermal goggles show lasers for security systems. But that's what it's going to be for now. But I'm going to now go into what my disappointments were.
Yes. So, which is the most disappointing sequel to you?
Oh, it was this one that I realized I need more than one episode because you're going to do a later one about what disappointed you, but I realized I can't just do this in one episode to talk about both my favorite sequels and my most disappointing. But System Shock 2 was a disappointment to me. Um, it became less of a computer hacking game, but and more of a simple horror shooting game. I mean, it's fine. It's somewhat of a predecessor to BioShock, but to me, it didn't feel like the original System Shock. In the original System Shock, you had cyberspace, and System Shock 2 doesn't even have that until the end. And it's not really technically that. It's not like the cyberspace of System Shock. It's more of the because you're going around inside, and I'll show it too. You're going around inside to get from one computer to access another. It's similar to the Matrix, um, or Tron. That even Tron's a better example of what this is representing
Okay.
in System Shock. But there's essentially two worlds in System Shock. In the original System Shock, you have and I've got it right here, so this should be pretty good. It's the remake, but it should work. But you don't have as much of this of the cyberspace aspect. So I'm gonna go into here. And, so it's the remake, but you're going to go into cyberspace to access a remote computer in the station. You can kind of see how you linked yourself inside of it to go into virtual reality mode.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Shadow, how you doing?
Shadow, how are you doing? Yeah,
Holy
System Shock.
Bible of Cyberpunk.
It is
Okay.
like Cyberpunk games. System Shock was 1994, and there was Shadowrun, as I learned. That's an RPG, but it was pen and paper until 93 or 94 when they came up with the games for SNES and Sega Genesis.
Yeah, yeah.
There is
I
Shadowrun
remember reading
Returns.
up on those.
There is Shadowrun Returns, but it's I don't know. I think it's still good, but
Yeah,
it's
because
not
wasn't that was just a multiplayer on the 360, right?
Shadowrun Returns. No,
Yeah, or am I thinking of another one?
well, there's other Shadowruns, but Shadowrun Returns is for mainly for PC and it's on Steam. It's still available on Steam. But you play as a top-down RPG, similar to Fallout or Baldur's Gate. So here you are in cyberspace. I need to blow up the security nodes to get access to the next terminal at another part of the station.
Mm-hmm.
But you obviously fly around and shoot at the nodes like it's Star Wars or Star Fox.
Really? The sequel sold poorly on its release.
Yeah, it sold terribly on its release. Even worse than the first.
Hmm.
I think there was part of a rush in production, and they're financially looking at last year is doing terribly as well. Not so well as all, but I'm going to show a little bit of System Shock too because it wouldn't be complete without that.
Was the basic structure of the game similar to the first one, or was it a large departure?
It's different because you have character classes that you play as, and you have skill trees in this new one. So it's System Shock 2 is similar to Deus Ex, that game series,
Okay.
but same villain. She's teased right here, Shodan,
Hmm.
the female AI that's trying to destroy you. But it has a very different how he starts. This is training, but it's somewhat behind what Half-Life was in terms of graphics and in terms of the mechanics. Half-Life being released in 1998, but it is 3D at this point.
People recognize the sequel more than the original. Really?
Yeah, yeah, they recognize this the sequel because it's mentioned a lot when as the predecessor to BioShock. Um, so Ken Levine, you've probably heard about him for BioShock. Ken Levine was the main writer for System Shock 2. Um,
Mm.
he was not in System Shock, in the original System Shock. That was in the first System Shock. It was Warren Spector who was the main writer, but he left for the long production of Deus Ex, the first Deus Ex.
Uh-huh.
So Ken Levine took over for System Shock 2. System Shock 2 sold poorly, but Ken Levine said, this looks like an interesting concept. I want to make this on a game. And since they're now are going to have consoles and PC games shared, he made one called BioShock, which borrows a lot of mechanics from System Shock 2, like hacking the vending machine, like you see here.
Hmm. Wait, see, I'm only seeing your slide.
Oh, yeah? Oops, let me see. All right, let's try this again. There we go.
There we go.
I'm going to go ahead to. I'll get to where the story starts. This is where it starts, and you'll find it's probably very similar to Quake 2, the Quake games, in terms of how it's graphically set up, and in terms of how you move around and shoot.
2014. Yeah, weird how that didn't happen.
2141, yeah.
Oh, was it 41? I thought it was
20. It's
14. My bad.
2141. It's funny because that's the time. That's the year that the Doom game, the first Doom game, happened. 2141.
Yeah, crazy how we're gonna like let every one of these sci-fi futures down.
I think Fallout is possibly the feature that happens. Although I hope
Right.
that I hope that what is it? I kind of hope that Warhammer is the future instead. Although we have tens of thousands of years to worry about Warhammer coming true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in certain elements, yes.
So this is where you get to see your character, the goggles always over his eyes, and he's being let out of the cryotube.
Yeah, just throw up a kidney. Why not?
Yeah, as you can see, the graphics haven't quite caught up in this game compared to other games in 1999.
it those goggles look so funny. It's like the step above Perfect Dark for character models.
Yeah, this is it's about a 200 megabyte game.
Kind of funny how classic sci-fi depicted 2012. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's one of those kind of almost disappointing elements about uh the way history has been denied progression, because we could have easily probably had like flying cars and whatnot by now, and
right.
it just,
I think
it
they're just
just didn't
scared
happen.
about liability for flying cars because there are remote control. You don't get to drive it. They're in they shown it in Korea and Japan. There are hovering vehicles, but you don't control it. Other
Mm,
people control it for you and fly you to where you're going to go. So you're in a remote controlled car that you don't control because they're worried about the safety of you piloting the thing with rotors. And I can understand that because I wouldn't want to have a car falling out of the sky for whatever reason.
yeah, you'd have an awful lot of accidents. You'd have an awful lot of accidents and a lot of people going through windows. That's for sure.
The FAA is crazy enough with what they have to take care of with regular airplanes. You want to add cars to that?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the beginning right here. And oh,
Oh,
so yeah, the creatures in this game overall are just it's in an awkward spot because it's when 3D and 3D is new for first person shooters relatively, but they don't quite get the things that made System Shock in this game. Like you don't get to see that cyberspace to activate access elsewhere.
oh, okay. So did they alter or outright remove the hacking?
It's they have hacking, but it's not like cyberspace. You have to actually like do a connect the sticks puzzle, which you did do for repairing objects, broken objects in System Shock, but it's it's not cyberspace.
Gotcha.
It makes it less of a cyberpunk game and more of a heart survival shooting game. And that was my disappointment with it.
Oh, so they just knocked it down a genre and took it away from what it used to be.
You're right. I mean, if you didn't call it System Shock, I would actually have a higher opinion of it.
Okay.
A much higher opinion.
Gotta love how they just have these big terminals that say information. It's like the message boxes from Super Mario World.
Yeah, I was. I think you beat me to that one.
One thing I always thought was funny was how Walt Disney thought people movers would be the future of getting to places.
Yes, I'll get back to the main part here.
Oh, like the tubes in Futurama.
Yeah,
By the way, if anybody has not seen it, Futurama on Hulu, the newest season, it's pretty damn funny.
okay. I mean, The Simpsons has lost its way for quite some time. It's a mess.
Oh yeah, no, the Futurama is actually funny. My lady
Uh,
and I were really concerned about certain things, but so far so good.
I mean, I couldn't stay on The Simpsons because it jumps everywhere in an episode, and that was years ago. I just like I can't watch this. This isn't The
Hmm.
Simpsons I used to know. So thanks for letting me know that Futurama hasn't gone the same off the rails route as Futurama. Futurama's not going off the rails like The Simpsons. Yeah, I did Shadow Master. It's just that it's tough to explain. It's like I'm talking about the 1998 film called Godzilla, because as a monster movie, it's okay, but it does not represent Godzilla well in any way. And I'm pretty sure Albeleo agrees with me on that analogy.
Yeah.
It's like some salamander movie, or iguana, I think it is. It's not
Iguana.
Godzilla. Okay. Yeah, so System Shock 2 is an okay game for survival and horror, but it's not a System Shock game. It's not a cyberpunk game the way the previous one was. So I'm glad that System Shock, the original System Shock, got a newer update in 2023 with new graphics, and it plays pretty well.
Hmm.
So next week, whatever happened to Halo Reach? So we're going to talk about the prequel that came long before Rogue One by a number of years, and which I prefer over Call of Duty. At least Halo Reach anyways. So it should be pretty fun. It's the end of the Halo games because I just haven't really bothered going beyond Halo Reach and the Halo 4 and so on. I just wanted to relive that prequel where the Spartans are still alive.
Yeah, where there's not the discount ones like Lock.
Yeah. Although to be fair, Locke was after Halo 3, so they probably would have made new Spartans from that point. But I'm just saying, back before you had the first Halo game and you get to see how that whole battle on the planet Reach was.
Hmm.
Yeah, Futurama, there's got to be some different writer on Futurama because The Simpsons is a total mess in every episode. I mean, I'm someone who enjoyed The Simpsons for years up until he actually came out with the Simpsons movie. But after this, it's like someone who can't even pay attention to what they're writing is writing The Simpsons. So I just left it.
Yeah, I was really worried after uh Disenchantment had came out. And like obviously Disenchantment sucked, and so it didn't continue after what, like 2 seasons or whatever. And I know like nobody likes Simpsons and hasn't since at least the movie. So I was really worried going into this, but so far, like genuinely, the first like 6 or 7 episodes, however many my lady and I have watched, every one of them has had us just laughing.
Ah, yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that Futurama is still doing something well. I think there's got to be someone who reined in some of the writing because or there's got to be even different writers because Simpsons is just it goes all over the place. It even went to the point of like how you can go into the real world as puppets. Like, okay, what's going on? They've got to be out of ideas or something.
Hmm. No, it even picks up right where it left off.
It does, like Futurama.
Yeah,
That's
like exactly where it left off. Yeah.
oh, that's good. Sounds really good. But next next week is whatever happened to Halo Reach, and Albeleo is doing the next one when we schedule it of our favorite and most disappointing game sequels. So I'll get to find out what you like and were disappointed by.
Yeah, I got to really figure this one out because there are so many there's so many that I really like, and there are a lot that I hate.
Oh, I realize that too. I realize there's a lot of games I don't like. So this is going to be more than one episode about favorite and disappointment.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe one idea could be like what Final Fantasy game really disappointed you? Which one you really enjoyed or something of that sort.
Yeah, I gotta really sit down and make the comparisons because there's Zelda, there's Final Fantasy. I mean, like the only ones that I'm like not like really frustrated with would be something like Doom.
Yeah,
Pretty much everything
Final
else just blows.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's next week, same time, same channel. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I'll be playing Castlevania Curse of Darkness later today in the afternoon, so that should be fun. And Albeleo will be playing Order of Ecclesia. Should be great as well. I hope you finish it. And
Yeah, I don't know if I will finish it. I'll probably definitely get into whatever the next major location is. Um, if I don't finish it, I'll probably just pick it up back in January because tomorrow will be the last stream that I do for the year. Because I really need the time off. I know like these last couple months it's just been a mess and I haven't gotten anything out.
and it
But
happens.
come January, I've got a bunch of things planned, and I'm probably going to do a lot of catch up reviews like Wicked and Gladiator 2 as well. So I will get around to a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on the week before Christmas and Christmas. I'm just gonna be playing earlier episodes of this stream instead of doing live because I'll be busy with my obligations for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So everyone, have a good night. Have a good day. Good night wherever you are, and I'll see you again Thursday for the last live stream with Halo Reach. Other than that, we will be premiering episodes that have happened earlier. So,
All right.
all right. Goodbye.
Thanks for coming, everybody. See you tomorrow.
All right. All right. Another episode of Whatever Happened to the Game. This one is hosted by Albeleo. And for you and those in the audience during the live chat, we're going to be asking him some questions about his favorite and most disappointing game sequels today. So welcome, Albeleo.
Hi there.
So for today's episode, we're looking forward to your favorite and most disappointing game sequels.
Well, I think I'll just get out of the I'll get the disappointing one out of the way first because I hate this game. Like
You want
genuinely.
to end on a high? Game. I don't blame you. I like ending on a high note myself most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So previously on the game series, we did watch Vampire Hunter D, the second part, last week. It was pretty fun. I felt we did a better job in our commentary on the second part. But this is just the end of our Halo things, and I promise I'll get the full volume of the Halo game reviews out as a premiere. But here it is. Tales of Symphonia. So that's a JRPG, correct?
Yep, yep. This is a so in the States, the Tales franchise didn't really take off until about the GameCube. The first game I think came out in like the PS1, but it didn't really hit mainstream popularity because of being overshadowed by Final Fantasy, right? You had 7, 8, 9 tactics, yada yada yada.
Yeah, that was true. I mean, let's see. So let's see. Final Fantasy VII was heavily advertised all throughout 1997 until its release. Then well, not quite almost immediately after, but 1999 was Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX in 2000. So yeah, it was almost completely back to back with Final Fantasy games being advertised on television.
Mm-hmm. And that's not including the long-standing popularity of the first one on the NES, because everyone still had that at the time. And then you had, of course, 4 and 6 on the Super, and those
Right.
games are still highly regarded, even though they are probably some of the weaker. Well,
Yeah.
4 is one of the weaker titles in the series. 6
And
is
for those, and for those of you in the audience, you probably are wondering what we're talking about 4 and 6. They mislabeled 4 and 6 as Final Fantasy 2 and 3 for the SNES. So
yeah, because in Japan, Final Fantasies 2 and 3 came out, but we didn't get a sequel to the original until 4. So they were just like, screw it, just call it 2, and then the 6 became 3. That's what we got.
Yeah, but you can get the real unreleased ones on Steam now, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
In multiple languages, in case you're not that great in Japanese, you can get it that way. But going back to the thing, so let's see it here. Developed by so it had previously had a release of Tales of Symphonia on the PlayStation 2. Okay, so that's what you're talking about there.
Yeah, so the first Tales game, I want to say it's like Fantasia or something. I don't actually know like anything about the Tales series outside of these two games. But on the GameCube, you got the release of Tales of Symphonia, and the game was so big that it required 2 GameCube discs.
Yeah, and that's rare for a GameCube. That's uncommon.
Oh yeah, extraordinarily. It's Tales of Symphonia is such a popular game in the series because it brought the Tales franchise to the West and solidified its foundation. That characters like Lloyd Irving, the main character, his costume is in Smash Bros. Ultimate. You can get him as a Mii fighter.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, like that's the kind of long-standing popularity that Symphonia has.
Oh, I realized I didn't have an Ultimate yet, but I'll get it because I have the Switch now, so why not?
Oh, nice. Yeah, so Symphonia did all kinds of crazy good things. They had it has all kinds of puzzles in its dungeons, so it has a lot of Zelda elements. It has an active combat system like Secret of Mana. You can avoid monsters and not have to fight them. Very similar to like avoiding Pokemon trainers in that universe, right?
Or the whatever, the Moogle charm. That's what it was from Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah, sort of. The monsters, like you run around in the dungeon, and all of the monsters are represented by these little models that will chase you and they'll wander around. You could avoid all of them if you want, or you can run into them and start the engagement. The same thing happens in the overworld. You don't actually have to fight anything if you don't want to.
So it's not a random spawn like Final Fantasy VII has random spawns, or just Final Fantasy generally does. Okay.
Yeah. So it's Tales of Symphonia was a great culmination of many different elements from a lot of different games, even more obscure things. Like you get to rebuild a city that's been destroyed. That's straight out of Breath of Fire 2, which is one of my favorites on the SNES. Like it did a lot. It did so much and solidified, like I said, it solidified the Tales franchise here in the West. So even if it's not considered the best, though many people would agree that it is, it's easily one of the most popular. It's like Mega Man X is the most popular one, but 2 is superior. Same sort of idea.
Yeah, right. I mean, X2 really got into things like you drive the hover bike through part of it, or have the flying mechs. Yeah,
Yeah, or 4 would probably actually be a better example of like raw the quality and popularity, I suppose. But X1 is like the one that everybody knows. Symphonia is basically the same thing, unless you're a fan of the franchise. And the game ends with this big, like the world was split, and the world
right,
it's phase shifted, sort of like think Prime Echoes, how there's like a light and a dark aether.
right.
Same sort of idea. And then the
Metroid
world's
Prime. Yeah, okay.
yeah, exactly. I should have said Metroid, sorry.
It's okay. I thought I
the
recognized it as Metroid.
Yeah, so the two worlds are recombined to solve the mana crisis in the world, right? Because the worlds vie for the dwindling amount of mana in the world. Dawn of the New World picks up a few years after the world has been reunified.
Okay.
And that's the first problem. Because in it's great that the world was reunified, but they don't take the necessary steps to build the world proper. So just as an example, in Symphonia, there are summon spirits, sort of like the Espers and the other summons from the Final Fantasy franchise, right?
Right, or GF, Guardian Force, right.
Yeah, exactly. And each of them relates to another, right? So fire and ice, earth, wind, etc. And they have this mana leak, but instead, and so they all affect their area. So like the Triet Desert is extraordinarily dry and hot. That's because Ifrit is the summon spirit of that area.
Right.
Same thing with Celsius in Flanor. It's this big, like Arctic island. It's very cozy kind of place. And when the world is combined, they basically throw out the concept of all of these lands clashing with each other in the literal sense. So like the Triat Desert doesn't become an icy wasteland, nor does Flanor start melting into a bog or a mire because of the heat. Like all of that, that kind of depth into the world goes right out the window.
Oh, that's okay. It sounds like they could have done more, but they didn't. That hurts the worst.
Yeah. They do focus on, in the story, Symphonia tackles a lot of different things. It tackles like racism and supremacy and a bunch of other things, because like they're half elves in the one world are looked down upon, whereas in the other world they're kind of the strongest race in the area, so they're kind of like they are supremacists to a degree.
Okay.
And they continue this sort of idea with things. Yeah, you see how he ran into that? That's how the combat goes. And then
there's okay, sorry. So you have avatars there for the monsters where you're in the open world. Okay, they don't just spawn and you don't see them. You see where they are.
Correct.
And you can run. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you hunt in Breath of Fire, like you shoot at the animals on the world map with bow.
Yes, exactly. That's actually a better way to put it. And to stay on the story points real quick, the story basically revolves around this main character here. This guy's name is Emil. He's an absolute punce. Like this dude is just a cowardly little cat. And his parents, is it like the first thing that bugs the crap out of everybody who's played Symphonia 1, we jump into this game and the opening cinematic is Emil's parents being murdered by Lloyd, the main character that you play as from Symphonia.
Okay. Do they ever do they give a reason why Lloyd went totally nuts, or no? I mean, I figured they would.
It turns out that he's being framed, but
Oh,
but the problem is you always follow and play as Emil. So something's wrong. Like there's no way that Lloyd would go around and just needlessly be killing people. It's such a stupid idea to open up the game with. So from the beginning, the story, the call to adventure is just completely wrong for anybody who knows the game.
right.
And then on top of that, you have the world building, which they fail to change anything on. Like this area here is there's a business for a guy who lets you fly around on dragons. It's like a sightseeing company.
Oh,
Problem is this area doesn't change. Like it gets overrun by these monsters, but that's about it. And there's like nothing else to do. They didn't change they didn't really take into account any of the effects of the world change to most of the locations that you travel to. So the whole story is just a total mess.
Okay, so the previous one did change certain parts of the world based on your quest status, right?
Yeah, basically, like you would travel to different areas. Every temple has its own element and its own puzzles, right? Shadow, light, earth, fire, wind, etc. And all of the towns basically have something for you to do there. Like when you come here, you're actually supposed to find, in the first game, you're supposed to find a guy who ran away from that city I mentioned that gets destroyed, and he sends you back to a ranch to take out the Desians, who are one of the villains in the previous game. And you come back here for a couple other things, like going to the Tower of Salvation, which is a major point in the world. And in this game, most of the extra locations are completely tossed aside and ignored. They basically don't have anything to do. Like this area where you come here to kill these monsters, this is basically all you do in this town. There's nothing else to do here.
That's what I'm worried about in a lot of. That's what I'm worried about in a lot of games. Like I'm worried about I don't know if I'll ever see Elder Scrolls 6. If I do, but I'm worried that Elder Scrolls 6 will have a lot of just wasted or generic locations in it compared to Skyrim.
Yeah. I have high hopes, but of course, I have I'm not gonna, think that they're not going to screw it up. Skyrim was disappointing in and of itself after a while, so we'll see.
I mean, I admit I still go back to Oblivion from time to time because Steam keeps it going.
Sure. So one of the other major problems with this game. So you have Emil on the right, the guy in the blue, and then you have the girl with really long ponytails. Her name is Marta.
Right.
The two of them are the main characters. Marta is head over heels for Emil. Emil is on this, pursuit of vengeance, etc., etc. And then you have that black cat in the background, Tenebrae.
Right.
There's actually there's actually a reason for why these characters are the focus. For one core reason. This game turned Symphonia into the Shin Megami Tensei series.
Yeah.
If you noticed in the combat, the girl on the left, Colette, she's absent. She's absent from the group because you can't actually control her. In the previous game, because Tales of Symphonia came out on GameCube, it was actually up to 4 players.
Really?
It was a couch game RPG. Like the 4 of your friends could sit down and rock the enemies, which was really cool, right? That was one of my favorite features.
That's great. That's great for multiplayer. I like that idea.
And the Steam re-release of the game actually has I think it's like online multiplayer. So they have the same. So like you can actually play it online. Like you and your brother could do it if you really wanted to. They took that away from this game. I think it only maxes out at like 2 players.
Oh,
because you only get to play as either Emil or Marta.
okay. And how does the Wii controls work? Are you holding are you just using the Wiimote sideways, or do you need to use the Wiimote?
No, it's Wiimote
nunchuck?
and nunchuck. So
Okay.
no Metroid Other M bullshit.
Good.
Actually, here in the combat, so you see that there are these 2 little demons on that make up the second half of the crew.
Yeah, sure.
You and like Brian caught here, yes, you do get to go around, capture all of these creatures, use them in combat, and they fight for you, and you can you can evolve them and get them stronger, etc., but you don't get to use any of the characters from the previous game. You don't get to use Lloyd, Sheena, Rain, Colette, Regal, none of them. Nobody actually gets to be used in this game. And so that's one of the biggest issues with the returning cast of characters being less useful in the game than, the monsters that you get to run around and collect as Pokeballs.
Oh, okay.
And the reason this is the case is because Dawn of the New World was not originally supposed to be a sequel.
It was supposed to be like a spin-off, or
no, it was entirely its own game. It had nothing to do with Symphonia.
All right.
So what they ended up doing to try and boost the sales is they Bandai Namco. Oh, actually, if you could pause this real quick. I don't want to bury the lead here. So the world in Symphonia is the open world. You actually get to run around and explore manually. Like they actually made a map that you can walk around in. There are treasure chests you can find. There are locations you can enter. There's all kinds of things that you can do. You can travel around with Riards, which are like, they're like the airship travel.
Okay.
You can ride around on Lloyd's dog Noish, who allows you to outrun enemies, because eventually enemies will run after you and force you to have to fight them. And different areas, like if you fight on the roads here that connect the pathways, you will fight mostly humans, or humanoid enemies, so bandits, thugs, ogres. If you go into the woods, you would fight, insects, birds, and just wild animals. The different things that you fight also dropped specific gear. So if you fought humans, you would get things like silk cloth and higher amounts of gold, and and all of these items were used for cooking in the game, because you could heal your crew by cooking. Everybody has their own different skills and their own requirements.
Right. I saw that briefly. It's like you saw the list of the drop list of ingredients, and which character is going to do it. I thought I was curious about that.
Yeah. So they had that, and the items like silk cloth were used for crafting. So you could one of the great things about Symphonia is, as you play through the game, it's actually better that you do not sell most of your gear, because eventually the weapons and armor you have from the old area can be used as an ingredient to make stronger weapons for free, instead of having to buy everything outright in the new town. So if you travel from, let's say you start out or let's say you get to Triet, and you have hypothetically you have this like silver sword, right? If you travel to the next town and you have the items like a beast fang, a gold, or whatever, then for free, if you have the equipment, you can use your silver sword to turn it into a gold sword. Versus purchasing that same weapon without having to craft it, of course, purchasing that weapon for, like, let's say 2,000 gold. So instead of
Okay,
taking a
sure.
financial hit, you hold on to your equipment and you can use it for later.
Right, you
They
save
took
money.
they took all of this out. You can't
Oh,
travel around the
really?
world anymore. You can't fight specific enemies unless you're in that location. So they didn't have, this is emphasizing the point of like this was never intended to be a
Right.
Symphonia sequel, because this is the map they created. You just go down a list wherever you want to go, you instantly warp there, and there's no travel time, there's no monsters to fight, there's no
Uh,
looking for enemies in specific regions unless you go to a town. Like, that's it. They took all of that out. The crafting system's gone from this game.
oh my. I guess that's an answer to what Chaos said. Like, you can't pay to take a train or bus. That's probably the GameCube one who could do that, right?
Yeah, like when Bandai Namco said, "Hey, you're going to make this into a Symphonia sequel," the game was so last minute that they didn't have the time that they needed to make what they wanted. That's really what it comes down to.
Oh wow.
So that's how it ended up in the way that it did, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. And just on a quick point too, before getting back to the point that
Yeah.
I'm forgetting, if you look at the minimap on the right side, in the
Yep.
top center is this Arctic area. That's Flanor. And to the
Wait,
east
so
of that,
they froze it over? What?
no. So what I mentioned earlier about how like there's the Triette Desert and then there's the frozen Flanor
Right.
area. So to the east of Flanor is this big ass desert. That's the Triette Desert. That is that's where Ifrit is. The problem here is that instead of these two areas being combined and turning it into a bog or something of the nature to like really like put things into balance, because like I said, the world has been reunited at this point. Instead of going through and doing all of that, they just left the two areas separate. Like, this is the kind of world building they did. They took the area, shifted around the world to make everything sort of fit, but they didn't put in the time and effort to really screw with the world itself. So you don't have to deal with elements, you don't have to deal with new monsters, none of that. You only have the time, and I'm sure, again, this is an issue of timing. The only thing they had to do was put in the world, and that's it. They didn't screw with the landscape, any of it. So you only basically have to focus on the players and the human story.
Oh, okay. So. Yeah, sounds like it got scalped there.
Basically, like it's really rough. And from a game like Symphonia that started off so big, so grand, because like I said, again, 2 discs on GameCube, like this was a huge game. I played through it. I think I played through it recently, like 2 years, like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now at this point. And I know what I'm doing. I put the game on hard mode because it actually has 3 difficulties. I put it on hard mode because I think that's the best one to play as. And the game still took me like 70 hours to complete everything.
Right.
Like, it's a big game, even for especially for the time. Like this was an odyssey to go on. And this game is nowhere near as in depth. So you don't. Yeah. So the story is way weaker because they start retconning a bunch of stuff and forcing new elements, like Tenebrae, for example. Tenebrae is what is he called? I don't think it's Scion. It's something like that. Basically, so you have the summon spirits, and then you have these new creatures that act as like the second in command, like they're just under them. And Tenebrae is like that Scion or whatever of Shadow. And now you go and fight them. You don't even necessarily fight like the old bosses anymore. And like the dungeons basically are the same thing. They hardly changed. So if you were hoping for any differences between like wind temple that was Asgard in Symphonia 1, it's
Right.
basically the same thing in 2. Like, you know exactly where to go and what to do, and there's like no changes.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. Like, there are a couple changes that were improvements, but like that's it's like trying to find a penny in a parking lot. It's like, good luck.
Yeah.
So like in the combat, if you recall, there's a point where Emil just like does this big looping like flanking attack where he just runs around.
Right.
In Symphonia 1, they carried over, because the first Symphonia was actually the first 3D game that the Tales team had ever tackled. So they brought in the old combat system from their previous titles. The problem with that is that you fought on a line. So the combat was that you, as the main player, if you fought an enemy, you were locked on the X-axis with that character, right? So let's say you're fighting a boss, and instead of okay, you know how like Symphony of the Night is like, it's just 2D and everything else,
right?
Imagine you go to target, like you're fighting, let's say
Galamoth.
Yeah, exactly. You're fighting him, and the room itself is 3D. It's this giant square that fits his fat ass.
Yeah.
If you do not lock onto him, you're forced to lock onto him. If you and a few other hunters are fighting Galamoth, the problem here is that the allies can run around in circles and break the connection, but you can't.
Oh.
It is annoying to deal with in the first Symphonia, but the game like, you can jump over enemies, you can break lock, and you can take control of your allies. Like, you don't actually have to play exclusively as Lloyd. You can play as literally anyone else. You can kick him out of the group and basically not use him at all in the game. Have a good day, Chaos.
Yeah, see you later, Chaos.
You can basically ignore Lloyd, like that last like third stretch of Chrono Trigger. It's like after you revive Chrono, it's like you don't even have to use him. You can use literally anyone else. Symphonia from the start basically allows you to do that. At least once you have like 5 members in the group, you could toss him in the back and never use him. Like, that's entirely up to you. In this game, in New World, you have to play as either Emil or Martha. I think it's Marta. And you finally have the ability to free roam. It's one of the only improvements in the game, like genuinely one of the only improvements. The music has a lot of remixes, which are incredibly underwhelming. They slow the pace, they dull the beat. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. It's sort of like what happened when they switched, when they screwed over Mick Gordon going into Doom Eternal.
Right.
How they like they recycled a lot of the music and ended up changing a lot of the quality of it. The re-recordings were different.
Right.
They changed up the tempo. Like, they screwed a lot of the music up. And the same sort of thing happened here. The music got some really bad remixes. Most of them are relatively intact, but not really. Like, it's just, this game does ultimately fail on pretty much every possible level, which is unfortunate, considering it should, following something so prestigious, in popularity and whatnot, and they just forced this game to become a sequel instead of taking the time to plan it out. They screwed up royally.
Well, haste makes waste.
Oh yeah,
A lot. So, now that we've gotten about halftime, we're going to switch over to the one you liked. Well, you can catch up, Den. You can catch up half of it later. Shouldn't be too much.
You missed the worst of it. You missed the worst of it.
So here we are with Starcraft II. I'm presuming this means it also means all three parts, like Wings of Liberty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in totality, like it's obviously it's not perfect. I've got my gripes about it too, but I love this game.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed in this one you're not an off-screen commander, off-world commander. You're actually playing as, at least in Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, you're playing as Raynor or you're playing as Kerrigan, depending on which campaign you're talking about. And as a character, you also level up and can't die or else you're gone.
Yeah, it is one of the first failings of Starcraft II. You in the first Starcraft, you were always referenced as, Cerebrate, Executor, Commander. You were always somebody in the story. You were a part of the meetings. You heard the communications. You helped everybody fight.
But
in
now
this game,
you are one of those characters in the game. Now you are actually in there as Raynor or Kerrigan.
Yeah. So Raynor and Kerrigan's like, it's these characters have to survive. You're playing their story. It's one of those immersion elements from, like
I
when you
believe
play
it was
Fallout.
Warcraft 3, because Warcraft 3 did it where you're actually playing as Arthas in the human campaign, or you're playing as I didn't finish Warcraft 3, sorry.
Oh no, you're good. Any of them, yeah. Thrall, Jaina, etc. That makes sense because that's meant to be an RPG and just happens to tell that, tell the story from that perspective. Starcraft 2 basically does the same thing, but it's that little extra level of immersion, sort of like what Fallout did. It's like you just exist, you're just the Wastelander, right?
Right. You're a blank character. You're a blank
instead of being somebody that's already
Fallout.
established. And really that's just one of the that's a gripe that frankly I don't really particularly care for, because it doesn't really have much effect on the overall game. And I also don't mind playing as characters because, like, if nobody did, Final Fantasy wouldn't have taken off. So,
right,
like I'm totally fine with this.
I mean, you also have the you can go to the bar. Yeah, the locations like in Wings of Liberty, you can go to the bar. You can go into the lab with Stegman and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't have a problem with it. I know a lot of people are like, it's stupid. It's like Final Fantasy. That's all I have to say. Like you literally play all these other characters. It's okay. But for the most part, with the exception of like the story itself, StarCraft 2 is just fantastic in terms of overall gameplay.
Yeah.
The being a top-down like RTS, the game has an extraordinary number of mechanics, and StarCraft obviously was so popular that it literally created the it literally is the reason for competitive gaming basically as we know it. Big events, massive amounts of money, teams, 1v1s, etc. Like this is all from StarCraft. And since it's basically a national sport in Korea, because those guys are nuts, and how like their skill level is insane. It's off the charts.
Tournaments, official tournaments.
Yeah. Like the GSL, there were so many others, but the GSL
and the original StarCraft was right after Diablo, which is the first, and the launch for BattleNet was Diablo, the first Diablo.
Yeah, and then they made and then they ended up making BattleNet work for
Warcraft
everything 2. Retroactively, I think, because I think you could even No. I don't think you could do multiplayer with Warcraft 1 at the time. I could be wrong.
It was Warcraft 1 did have multiplayer, but it was really primitive phone line connection.
Yeah, because it was reminiscent of Spectre at the time.
So
And
BattleNet was great because you have an actual service that can have a reach over a worldwide reach for doing multiplayer games real time.
Yeah, and you could have some monstrous games because it was like 8v8. It was like, I mean, it was like in a free for all. It was like you versus like 8 other people, which was really fun. And because of all of this, and StarCraft built basically for that, because like the StarCraft 1 was basically built as a multiplayer game, and then they built the story around it. And that's why it plays so well in multiplayer. StarCraft 2 was basically approached in the exact same way. Let's build the badass campaign editor first, make the multiplayer, and make sure the game plays well, and then we'll build the story. And that's basically my understanding. I could be wrong, but that's basically how they did it. And they made, at least for a time, what was considered to be one of the best games ever made. And that's all before Blizzard screwed it.
Also, yeah, and that's also Warcraft. StarCraft 2 was also when StarCraft started being 3D, because the first one was actually was only really 2.5D with integers for how you up and down a hill, whereas in StarCraft 2 you have actual slope terrain.
Correct. And correct. Yeah, because they took Warcraft 3's like engine and just it, like, if Warcraft 3's engine was like the Super Saiyan of what Blizzard was able to produce, they made Super Saiyan 4. Like the engine, the campaign editor, and what you can do with StarCraft 2 is so radically different. Just the potential is nuts. I mean that's one of the benefits of the game is the custom not only are there custom campaigns, but the custom games that exist in StarCraft are so wild in comparison.
I
mean, this is why Blizzard had to double down on
anti-mod.
They own everything in StarCraft. So because this became a problem with Warcraft 3 Reforged. Because Dota, Defense of the Ancients,
right? It became a spin-off game.
Yeah, it was a Warcraft 3 mod. Exactly. It was a mod that they made. Like, the original MOBAs came from StarCraft. The original MOBA was actually a one-lane combat where in the original StarCraft 1. And then people took the idea and extrapolated it with the vast resources available in Warcraft 3, and that's how you got Defense of the Ancients. That's how you got League of Legends. Those games, the bones, their DNA are in Warcraft 3. Those games were made at that time, and then they became their own things. League of Legends was a branch off of Dota, of what would become
Defense of the Ancients,
Dota,
right?
And Dota
The custom game, yeah.
Exactly.
There was also War Chasers or Azeroth Grand Prix.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all of that came from there. So what Blizzard wanted to avoid was losing the ability to own anything that came from this. So with Warcraft 3 Reforged, this isn't necessarily an issue of StarCraft 2, but retroactively they applied it to SC2. And now they basically just own everything that anybody custom makes in their own playground. So like that's really unfortunate. Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things I have noticed when because I stopped StarCraft 2 with Heart of the Swarm because I had other business to attend to at the time as the children. But when I went back, I noticed that BattleNet automatically gives me the remastered for StarCraft and Warcraft 3, and I just found that pretty convenient.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of that aside, the gameplay is vastly superior. And it evolved as they were making the game too, which is really interesting to see. For example, in StarCraft 1, it was always such a damn hassle to have to manage all of your forces in different areas, and you didn't have
You had the limit. You had the limit to how many you could select at once too.
Yeah, exactly. You could only do like 12 at a time, which was a lot compared to the 9 in Warcraft 2 and 4 in Warcraft 1. But they ended up changing that substantially so that at least in Wings of Liberty, you could grab your entire army, workers included, and send them off to battle. And it was great because it allowed you to control so much more, because if you had the control groups, which StarCraft II made much better use of, you could command more units at a time and flank. The micro in Wings of Liberty was substantially improved, and it was a major focus of the game. And then came Heart of the Swarm. Now, everybody's in agreement that Heart of the Swarm was a major misstep. It was not finished. It didn't complete any of the extra elements that they said they were going to. Actually, it overlaps with Symphonia here. In Tales of Symphonia, you don't get to make like crazy permanent changes, but you have a relationship status with all of the characters. Like, you can be best friends with any of the guys or in a relationship with any of the girls. And it does affect minor things. Symphonia 2 did the same thing that Heart of the Swarm did. The relationship status doesn't properly transfer. So if you, let's say you, as Lloyd, you start a relationship with either Colette or Sheena or Rain, right? And Tales was supposed to have that transfer over, and I think the information actually does if you have your original GameCube memory card, because the it was built with the Wii. But the problem is it doesn't make any permanent changes. So things that you do in Symphonia 1 do not matter in 2. Heart of the Swarm did the same thing. In Wings of Liberty, you have the choice to you could either help
have binary mission choices.
Yeah, exactly. You could either help Tosh to break all of the prisoners, the POWs out of the prison planet and start the revolution against Arcturus, or you could help Nova and assassinate Tosh. In Heart of the Swarm, they were originally going to make it so that if you chose to help Tosh, Nova arrests Raynor at the beginning of Heart of the Swarm, and the main story continues as it does in the game right now. If you helped Nova, she would have actually looked the other way, and you would have to find Raynor in a whole nother location and hook up with him later in under different circumstances. They abolished all of that in Heart of the Swarm.
Oh, so that's why it's always the same one where Raynor's in that same prison, regardless.
Correct.
Okay.
None of the choices that you make in Wings of Liberty actually matter. Like, there are canonical choices, like these are the intended things.
It doesn't matter long term, but what you have in your arsenal depends on what you did in the missions.
Sure. There is that, like, there is the Zerg research, the Protoss research, but the story choices do not matter. If you choose to save,
if you went with Tosh in the mission, you get Spectres instead of Ghosts. If you went with Nova, you got Ghosts.
Yeah. But in Heart of the Swarm, the story choices of helping Tosh or helping Nova would have come into play. They got rid of that.
Okay.
So, and since you're playing as the Zerg, it really doesn't matter. Because getting Spectres or Ghosts does not matter here.
Right.
The choice of helping Tosh would have got Raynor in jail, which would have sent you on, we have to go break him out now, kind of that mission. If you had helped Nova, it's a lot of people have speculated that you would have been able to go and obtain, go get Raynor on a whole nother mission where you hook up with him and like save him from like Protoss, like the
Tal'Darim.
Tal'Darim, thank you. Yeah, like the Tal'Darim or something. It's like it would have been a different setting, and the story would have actually mattered based on the choices you made. They did get rid of that for Heart of the Swarm, unfortunately.
So I was going to ask you a little bit about what did Legacy of the Void improve on the previous two and all, or did it go backwards a little bit?
It overall, Legacy of the Void improved on, I think, everything. So you had all the previous options like F2 to select all of your army, which Heart of the Swarm introduced. It still had basically everything else, but you also now had far more options because Heart of the Swarm, for people who do not know, gives you the ability to level up Kerrigan. This is the talent tree that also affects the game overall, because you also have the option to choose an evolution for Zerg units, like the Toras or the
basically when you did the level ups for Kerrigan and how she could, what skills she could have as a battlefield unit were affected by that, how you chose to evolve her. So does that, who do you play as in terms of Protoss in Legacy of the Void?
In Legacy of the Void, you can choose any of the 3 factions that you gain access to. You have the Kali, the original Protoss, the like Artanis, his forces. You have the Nathrazim, the Dark Templar. You have the Tal'Darim, because I always forget the guy's name, but he joins you. He becomes your ally. And then you also have the oh man, I haven't played Starcraft II in so long, I'm already forgetting their names. There's they're Reclaimers, I think they're called the Reclaimers. Basically, they're robots that the Protoss built, and they upload the personality of heroes from ancient Protoss times. So like Phoenix from the first game, he dies twice. Like he dies once as a zealot, he's turned into a dragoon, and then he's killed again.
Yeah.
His personality and the voice actor, which is nice, are brought back in the body of a whole new unit, and you can use this unit in the game, and he brings with him, I'm pretty sure they're the Reclaimers, I'm probably wrong. He brings with him the artificial Protoss. And so you have an option to bounce between any of these units in this line. So like in Wings of Liberty, you had the option between like on the Zerg side, you had the choice between that Panther, that like robot cat attack unit, or the Hercules dropship.
Right.
And whichever you chose was permanent, because that's the research you went with.
Right. That
in
was
Legacy of the Void
campaign.
Yeah, in Legacy of the Void, you can change that on the spot. Like, if you're having an issue with a mission and you think a certain unit would be better in this regard, you could absolutely use that character. So
but you just have to unlock that character to have him as a choice.
Yeah, basically, like once the faction joins your cause, you get to use that faction's equivalent. So in take the Zealot, for example. In Legacy of the Void, the Zealots that Artanis leads have these big battle axes instead of the regular 2 side blades.
Right.
You can have them, and they do their charge, and they do their little Garen spin to win move. Or you can switch over to another version of a basic biological unit like the Adepts, which are light damage ranged units that they have like a sort of blink ability where they can send out a shadow version of themselves, and then they can teleport to it. So like, and you can change that back and forth. It's not permanent. It's a major improvement over the overall gameplay. You're not locked into something with evolutions or technology like the previous 2 games, which gives way more replay value in Legacy of the Void.
Yeah, I'm a little bit annoyed because I reinstalled StarCraft II, and I'm trying to earn and saying, and they're saying, "Oh, play against AI because you haven't earned your skill yet." I guess it's good because I'd be terrible at other players, but
Yeah, that's fine.
I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are so focused on like StarCraft was so focused on the ability for you to get better for the competitive scene that it takes so many variables into account that it's gnarly. Like you cannot you cannot climb this ladder of any kind without serious improvement. Like when I first when I got into StarCraft II all those years ago, because I grew up playing StarCraft 1 and everything, and I played this like nonstop. I never came close to Korean level. Those guys are insane. But with StarCraft 2, I actually ended up Diamond. And
Okay.
I ended up Diamond in 2v2s as well. And the problem with a lot of I say problem, it's not a problem. It's the people who play StarCraft 2 now are so dedicated to the game that the only ones basically still playing StarCraft 2
Are
are
those ones?
extraordinarily good.
Yeah.
So when I was a diamond at the time, and this is years ago, I was good for the time. If I played now, I don't even know if I would be able to maintain a high silver. I don't know if I could do it. Like everybody is so substantially good because they up until the StarCraft 2 game the team split and all went in their own different directions. They did so much work on improving the game that the AI, even for the co-op mode, got so much harder that you had to be on the ball, like especially on like brutal difficulty, which is what I always play at.
Yeah.
If you can't keep up with like the easiest missions, you can't keep up with any of the others. And it's because they kept improving and changing the AI. They kept they gave more styles of combat. Like if you so like the co-op mode is my favorite aspect of the game. I love co-op mode. You get to
Right.
play as any of the commanders. This is in Legacy of the Void. You get to play as any of the commanders, any of the characters from the canon, right? So you have plenty of canon characters that are still alive, like Raynor, Artanis, Kerrigan.
Zeratul still alive, right? I figured Zeratul, the Dark Templar chief. He showed up in Wings
No.
of Liberty. Oh,
no, actually, Zeratul dies.
Oh, okay.
But they also did bring in characters that are dead. So Arcturus and Zeratul are also commanders. All of them have their own unique gameplay, and they all have their own and their gameplay can be turned into different things. You don't have to stay with the one thing that everybody does. There are effective means of playing these characters in this manner, of course. Swan is like Mecha Terran, right? He's all about cyclones.
Rory Swan, the mechanic.
Yeah, exactly. So he's all about, the vehicles. He's Thors, Goliaths, Cyclones, Diamondbacks.
Right.
But you can also go air with him.
Right. Okay.
I think there's another one that also allows him to like hyper focus on the drill. Like there's this big badass drill from one of the missions in Legacy of the Void where you have to drill into an old Xel'Naga temple to obtain an artifact. Swan always has the drill, and there's a version of his gameplay that focuses like exclusively on the drill.
Wait, you mean the laser drill, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you just get to use it. Like it's so powerful. And
I mean, I know it from Wings of Liberty because you're trying to drill into the door, but the Tal'Darim are coming at you, and that's where you get the siege tanks and Wings of Liberty too.
Yeah. So you get the siege tanks, you get the drill, and there's a version of him that's entirely focused on the units, so you don't get to use the drill. And there's also another version of him if you build into the talents, because each character has a talent tree. Like, you have 3 options. Each of the options has one or the other that you can improve upon as you build up your leveling in co-op to make you more powerful, so that you can more easily play all of the different difficulties.
Okay.
And if you choose the different path, you can build towards that a little bit easier. So, like, you can increase, like, health recovery for your machines,
Right. Okay.
or you can go the other way and increase or decrease their attack cooldown, right? Like there are different things that you can choose for all of the different characters, and the commanders all have their own multiple different paths of combat, and each of the enemies that you fight all have, the Zerg, the Terran, and the Protoss all have different styles of combat too, which is what tricked a lot of people up when they did that big update years ago. So you would have you would have Protoss death balls on the ground, just roaming around destroying shit because they went heavy ground. Or, God forbid, the next mission, you're like, oh, okay, I dealt with this. I'll learn how to, I know how to beat it, no problem. And then the next mission, they send the fucking Golden Armada at you with like 3 motherships to wipe out your base. And you're like, it forces everybody to adapt.
Yeah, I seem to notice when I was doing the AI training, which they want me to, obviously, from what you're saying, AI wants to test me for good reason.
Yes.
that every side has long range air to ground artillery. I mean, it used to be the Zerg that had it with Guardians, but that changed, obviously.
Yeah, good old Broodlords. The co-op is basically the reason anybody even plays Starcraft II at this point, because unfortunately this game died because Blizzard just screwed everything up with that.
Well, the big thing that took over for them was World of Warcraft, which I don't blame them for because it's money for them, but they all suffered.
Yeah, they royally screwed WoW as well. I quit early Shadowlands. I never went back.
Oh. But all I have to say is that, when playing this back from Wings of Liberty, they had the map building software and the scripting software, so people could make custom games for StarCraft 2, similar to what they did with Warcraft 3. Although
somebody completely rebuilt StarCraft 1 in StarCraft 2.
I'm gonna look for that.
Yeah, I know they built the Terran campaign. I don't know if they built the rest. StarCraft 2 already has like all of the units, the Guardians, the Devourers, the Dark Archons, everything is in StarCraft 2. And so they rebuilt like the whole game. Everything is in StarCraft 2. But it plays as StarCraft 2, not StarCraft 1. So if you like the better natural hotkeys of StarCraft 2, which were vastly improved over the base ones from 1. If you like having the F2 button, if you like having all of that, you can just play the first game in SC2. Like it's
graphics.
Like Community has done so much,
Oh. I'm a little confused. I'll figure out how to find the custom games in StarCraft 2 again. I'm just I just went back into it the week before last week because I was curious. I realized, I dropped off. I could come back and finish it now after all these years.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
It's still a great game. I love it. I really should play it at some point, but I, like you, it's busy.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for stopping by, Shadow Master, Den, and Chaos, and all
Brian.
Those who are in the audience, and Brian, very much. So, what's happening now? We're going to be doing our commentary on whatever happened to the movies, watching Trigun, the first episode. And also, I'm going to be sharing my favorite and most disappointing sequels after that, the day before Valentine's Day. So, it should be pretty good. Yeah.
Cool. Question: are you continuing Castlevania 64?
I'm starting it over because I lost my save game for that, so but I will be sure to catch up with it. I also messed it up because there's that part where I have to talk to the boy before I take the nitroglycerin in the bottle all the way across the castle.
No, nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. Damn. The game,
the
developers don't like that.
Yeah, but otherwise I'll be starting over again. But it's okay. I think it's underrated as a game for 1999, not 92. Anyways, I'll see everyone later today, and I'll be having this afternoon with Castlevania 64. So
nice. I will be having a video released later today, just very briefly discussing Anthony Mackie's comments about Captain America.
Yeah, I'll talk. I'll get more on that because it's getting late, but I'll talk to you more about that in a later episode, briefly, without losing focus. So, everyone else, thank you everyone for stopping by. I'll see you later this afternoon, and next week it is going to be about Trigun.
Yeah. Have a good day, everybody.
All right.
So as this volume draws to a close, I want to welcome you and thank you for stopping by and give a little visit to the podcast of Whatever Happened to the Game. And hopefully you enjoyed and had a nice time visiting here this evening on Thursday night. And I hope you have a nice time. In the meantime, there are links to both myself, my own channel, and to Albeleo's channel, who is a guest on these episodes in the series. And I want to wish you a wonderful evening, and you can stop by the channel and related links in the description. Get some Vampires Rule merchandise, or you can just check out some jokes I have every now and then on Instagram. It should be pretty fun. In the meantime, hope you have a wonderful evening, and until we meet again, farewell.